Okay, I want to take a second to welcome anybody who might be watching this over the live stream here today. I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to be talking with candidate Mark Kurland for a few questions. We call this kind of a virtual open house and try to think about some of the questions that community members or staff members might ask. And try to recreate that feel a little bit as best we can. I also want to remind people who are tuning in that if you go to the web page, the front page, there is a feedback form for these as there are for the interviews tonight. So, Mark, welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I'm just going to kind of go ahead and get started here and that kind of thing. I want to start out by asking you about Mark Kurland as a person. We all know your educational background, have a pretty good idea of it, what a strong leader you are and that sort of thing. But the question I would pose you to begin with is, how did you get to be the person that you are today? Not Mark Kurland, the educator, although you certainly can't divorce that from the person, but how did you get to be the person you are today?
Thanks for that question, Mr. Dobiash. I think, first of all, I dwelled on a little bit of that in my first interview, so I'll go back to that. But I think a lot of it comes from the fact of how I was raised, first of all, by my parents. My father instilled upon me of being a hard worker, and so I think that's the essence of where I come from, that I'm a hard worker. He always instilled upon me of treating people with respect, and so I've always tried to do that throughout my career, whether it's in teaching or coaching or just working with people. So I think from that standpoint of just going down that road, I think as I got into high school and participated in sports, that gave me the teamwork, the collaborative efforts that I've built upon throughout my career and have brought me to where I am today.
Okay, well, out of curiosity, what sports did you play in high school?
I played baseball, basketball, and football.
Okay, very, very good. So obviously, one of my questions on the list was asking candidates about athletics and what their view of athletics and the whole schema of the educational process.
I think I can delve into that one very specifically. I played high school sports during my career. After high school, I actually worked as a coach, as I said before, in Dowagiac. I also did some coaching in Kalamazoo, at Kalamazoo Central, and actually coached there when Derek Jeter was there. So I coached him as a basketball coach as an assistant. I just always looked at how to interact with kids outside of the classroom. I think that's vital, whether you're a teacher, an administrator, or just living in the community. And Buchanan being very strong in how they support athletics, I've always been just impressed on how much we support our sports here. But I think there's that point where you get to know kids outside the classroom, and that's vital. Okay, and so I think I've always dwelled upon that. Working in Dowagiac as a dean of students or student advocate, I always attended all the after-school events and got to know the kids outside of school. During my time as an assistant principal and principal at the middle school, I would say that people probably saw me at those events 99% of the time. Even in my role in central office now, I still try to get out and look at those different athletic events, but also fine arts. I've always been a proponent of fine arts, as I have that in my background as a teacher, of supporting the whole child in my mind, which is not just the core classes, but PE, band, choir, etc., all those type of things, along with the athletic piece.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to go into fine arts next, and you kind of preempted me on that and that kind of thing. So do you think it's really, really valuable all the way across the board for kids to have another niche besides the academic niche?
I do. I strongly believe in that and have throughout my career, as evident by all the extra things I've done outside of just the teaching or the coaching. I think it's important that we support our kids no matter what they're doing. But as we move into just athletics, we got to keep in mind there's students out there, and this community is very strong when they look at the fine arts. Okay, drama and plays and band and choir are important. And I believe that strongly, and that's why I've supported those during my time here as a leader and would continue to do so.
Go back kind of to that first question a little bit. We talked about, how you got to be the person you are today. Who have been some of your influencers along the way, on a personal level and on a professional level, both?
I think on the personal level, as I said, my parents instilled upon me of how to treat people, how to work with people, and so on, and that work ethic and that dedication and putting forth your best effort. So I would give that part, the personal side, to my parents. I think as we move into the teaching side, the professional side, I would first of all go back to my high school football coach, and look at that person as being a person who was responsible for helping me get to where I am today and how I work with kids and so on, and how I interact with kids. I think that as we look at our personality as a whole, we also have to look at some of the people that we've worked with. Okay. I think there's been leaders in other districts that have kind of helped me hone my craft, but also some leaders in this district since I've been here so long that I've kind of learned things and picked up things from that help me lead the way I do right now.
Okay. So we've gone through or are going through obviously a crisis like none of us could have ever imagined with the COVID. My wife read me an interesting article and then asked me the question. The article was about the positive things that have happened for people during the COVID experience. And she shared with me, and then I shared with her, and her answer was obviously a lot better than mine was, a lot more thoughtful. But for you, has there been some positives that have come out of this COVID experience? And if so, can you describe anything?
I think one positive would be, and maybe some people wouldn't necessarily think this is a positive, but that parents had more time to spend with their children at home. That may have gotten long by the time the school year was over, but I think that that's a positive. I think in today's times, with everybody being so busy and everybody moving from here to there, sometimes we lose track of that, of how important family is or should be to us. So I think first of all, that's a positive from the standpoint of the family atmosphere, and I know how important that is in Buchanan. So I think that's one positive. I think another positive from the standpoint of let's say education. We had to get away from moving to online and using Google Meets and so on and so forth. We had to increase our technology skills and implementation of technology. And so while we might not have been able to do that at every level, we are looking to do that in the fall. And so I think that got us away from the normal book and written assignments and things like that. It allowed us to be a little more creative as teachers and administrators and how we interact with our students. Keeping in mind that, another positive from that teaching standpoint is you had those Google Meets, which kept up that social interactions with kids and so on, even though we weren't at school. So I just think that vital of looking outside the box of how we learn to instruct in this new format with dealing with COVID.
So let's talk about, ask that same question for you, like on a personal level. When my wife answered that question to me, she said, one of the things that's been really positive, she's gotten back into sewing. And she really enjoys that. Have you had anything like that on a personal level, a hobby level, that this has provided an opportunity for you?
See, as a personal level, no, I just think I've tried to keep doing some of my walking, which I used to do before COVID came into place. I may not be as up to date as where I was, but I think from the
Sure.
standpoint of just getting back to the positive, just spending some time with my kids, more time with my kids, after of work, I spent plenty of time with them in the morning, working with them 3 or 4 hours, then going to work, then coming home. There really wasn't any place for them to go. And so that just gave me time to kind of get back and work with my kids or be with my kids. Some of the time that I might have lost before, which
Well,
is
nobody
important.
can argue the importance of that. So switching gears, what's been your biggest challenge during the whole COVID situation here the last 3 months or so?
I think my biggest challenge as the curriculum person and kind of keeping in mind what we're doing from the educational standpoint of our students is just trying to make sure that we were providing the best possible education we could for our students based on what our positive and negative aspects were at that time when we left. We had a shorter period of time to get together and work together as a leadership team and as teachers. And so we put in place the best possible plan we could at that time. Obviously, going through that and learning from that, there's some changes that we've talked about as a leadership team and as principals we'll talk about in the future and how we'll proceed in the fall. But I think a challenge is just incorporating more technology and getting people, from my standpoint and my role, is looking at where we are in the district. That would be our number one challenge, making sure that we have technology available to our elementary students when we return in the fall, then making sure that we have the proper training for our teachers so that they feel comfortable across the board, K-12. We might be there at middle school and high school level. Elementary principals will have a concern about where they might be there. And so I think that's my number one challenge that I take away from this is the idea of the technology and how we might use that.
Okay. So I'm going to have you get out your crystal ball here for a second. Let's fast forward to, which we probably would all like to do, till the time we have a vaccine. Whether that's vaccine comes out after the first of the year and, has had time to kick in and, maybe things are beginning to return to some kind of normalcy. I don't know, let's say March next year, something like that. What's going to be the imperatives for schools at that point? What do you see moving forward as a result of this whole COVID experience? And, for instance, I would think, one of the things is we're going to have to find a way to catch some kids up, right? Because there's going to be kids that just aren't getting what they need during this time. But what do you see moving forward? What do you see some of the obstacles and opportunities and maybe paths?
I think when we're talking about obstacles, that point that I'm just making a note of that question because it was kind of long. When you're looking at obstacles that are out there, obviously those kids that have missed out on some things and so on, and what are we doing to kind of help them catch up? I think that as we begin the year and hopefully we're back at school, I think we're going to try to do everything as a state to do that. We have to kind of keep in mind what our multi-tier system of support is and what we have in place. We have that in place at the elementary, middle school, and high school level at different areas and different strengths. That's the first part. The other part of that is that social piece. And so I think if all things being equal and we say, hey, as of March, we're back to 100% of where we were, I think then we have to look at kind of looking outside the box and looking at other ways to catch up those students that we consider are behind. What are we going to use to do that? We're going to look at some of our assessments that we have in place already. We do have the elementary levels do have a couple grants that are out there that are kind of specifically set up to help those struggling students. I know that the high school has an after-school program that they've been working with and using over the years. Middle school has an after-school program. If that doesn't work based on what the community or what parents are saying, hey, we don't want them staying after school, then we have to again look outside the box and maybe adjust our schedules to get those students the support they need during the school day. We have interventionists in place at all of the buildings. So I think we just have to be able to think outside the box and maybe reschedule, retool what we're doing in-house during the school day, if that doesn't work the after school.
Very good. Mark, what do you like to do when you're not on the job? And when you're not on the job.
I think a lot of times when I'm not on a job, I like to just, if I'm at home, spend time with my family. A lot of people will say, Mark, what did you do this weekend? And I'll be like, hey, I just relaxed by the pool. I might have did some reading. I might have just went for a walk with my wife. I spent so many hours here at school, and people that know me have heard me say that I'm here early, I stay late, depending on what my job is. I just like that time to kind of relax and get back to myself, So spending time with my kids. I have 4 kids, and so over my career, I've lost a lot of hours with them. And so if there's time when I'm at home, I like to spend time with them. My daughter's just learning how to drive, so that's taking up some of my time right now.
Yeah, kids sometimes are the recipients of our long hours, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay, my screen just went black.
So do mine. I mean, I can
Oh,
see myself.
I'm still here. The lights just went off in the library here. Here we go.
All right, I can see you
Uh,
now.
so do you read for pleasure?
I like to read. If I'm reading some things for pleasure, I'm reading some sports. If I'm reading professionally, then I might be reading a book that might help me as I move throughout my career, depending on what we're doing. We've done some book studies, as a leadership team over the years, so I find that being helpful for my career. You know, but just as a reading for pleasure, I like to read a lot of the sports things and things that are out there. I just find that with my time being busy, if I'm not reading professionally for what I'm doing, then I'm spending time with my kids as that's vital to me, and time with my wife.
Okay, very good. Civic involvement. Um, how have you been a member of the greater community, involved in civic organizations, civic initiatives, projects, um, any of those areas?
I think that if you, from my standpoint of with respect to the Buchanan community, I'm trying to think of civic necessarily. Can you define civic to me, what that means to you?
What that means to me just means being involved in the community.
Okay. I mean, I think from the standpoint of when I look at the Buchanan community, I look at, first of all, the schools and how I've interacted during my time as being a member of the schools. I think that obviously my time and efforts have been in that area. When we're looking at from a civic standpoint or how I'm involved in the community, I have, I do a lot of I eat a lot of times here, breakfast and things like that. I shop here at times as I need before I'm on my way home. I think that I've been involved in the Empty Bowls project with respect to the community. I think most of my roles involved with respect to the community have dealt with how I've been associated with it from the school standpoint. Obviously, as a leader of the district, there might be other areas that would become involved. Okay, I think it would be important to become a member of the chamber. I've attended the chamber dinners. I've helped support the efforts of the chamber by some of the administrators around the chamber. But I think it would be vital to kind of get involved with those organizations more at the district level to show that there's a camaraderie or support between the district and the community. At this time, I haven't had those opportunities.
But I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will.
Mhm.
So here's a question that I got asked in one of my interviews one time, and it all kind of struck me, and I didn't have a good answer for it. So naturally, I'm going to pose it to you,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
So you hear the term passionate educator a lot. So as an educator, how do you display or how do you show that you're passionate about education?
I think first of all, if you're passionate about education, you have high, I'm trying to think of the word, high academics, high standards. Okay, you're expecting kids to go to this level. You're expecting your leadership team to go to this certain level of where we expect to be. So high expectations. I think if you have a passion for what you're doing, students and parents know that you care about kids no matter what your leadership, where you're leading. Okay, at the middle school level, obviously, and people that know me know that there were times when I didn't make parents happy. Okay, I do remember though, and I still remember, when you have those kids that had struggled and you might have had confrontations with parents and so on. I think the thing that shows your passion is that you stuck to what you believed in, what the board supported, what the superintendent or leadership at that time was supporting, and at the end, when you have parents coming back and telling you, hey, thanks for continuing to work with my kid, even though you had to suspend him. Thanks for coming in at 6 in the morning to
Yeah.
work with my son or daughter because they were going to get suspended or if they didn't get their work done up. And I would say, hey, I would meet with them and I would work with them on their math for a half hour in the morning. So even though we may had a difference of opinion on the discipline that was applied, okay, my passion for working with kids and with parents, by saying, hey, if you want to come in and meet with me at 6:30 in the morning, I'll do that. If you want to meet at 7 o'clock at night, I'll meet with you. So to me, that's that passion that comes out there that maybe not everybody knows, but I think that's just your inner workings, your inner self of how you deal with kids and how you deal with parents. I know over my career, I've had lots of people come back and talk to me and say, hey, when I was at Benton Harbor High School and you were my math teacher, and that's a while ago. Okay, I dropped out of school, and I said, yeah, I didn't know where you were. And young lady came to me and say, this is my daughter. I just want to let you know that you helped me through math, and I'm now in a 4-year school, and I'm playing basketball and whatever. And I think that just hits to the home that, hey, if you're passionate about what you're doing, people will follow you.
That's a great answer. I wanted to, you kind of got into the next area a little bit. You talked about the person bringing her daughter back that's now in 4-year college and playing basketball and that kind of thing. Over the course of your long and storied career, what would be a couple of things that really stood out or stand out to you as these were the coolest moments?
I think number one, if you're talking about during my teaching career, would be that time when I worked with that young lady, and I didn't know at the time where she had gone, where it had happened to her. There was, it was rumors out there, but I didn't know. But that when her coming back and telling me, hey, thanks for continuing to work with me, even though I left school, I'm now back in school, and I just want to thank you for helping and working with me. I think another instance is when I was also in Benton Harbor. I had one of the basketball players in my class, and he was struggling, not doing well. And I kept telling him, hey, I'm going to go down and talk to Coach so-and-so. And he's like, no, you're not. And then, one day after class, I went down there, and he was in a PE class, and I was sitting there, and I'm like, hey, Coach. He's like, hey, Mr. Garland, how you doing? Because he knew me from when I had coached in Kalamazoo. And so we had that conversation one-on-one about, and how he was doing, how he wasn't supposed to be doing. He was going to fail my class. And then after that, it was not a problem. I just think there's that teamwork that you're doing as a leader. Moving on to the WAJAC, I think just the support from parents coming and talking to me and kids that I coached coming back and saying, hey, thanks for being a coach and supporting me and so on. I think as we move into Buchanan, I'm thinking about some of those kids that I've worked with at the middle school that struggled, that their parents supported our efforts in making them successful, bringing them into school in the morning early, having them come after school, stay after, work with me and or the staff. I think from a leadership standpoint, those administrators that I'm working with now that are willing to put in the extra time shows me that they have the passion along with me to do what's best for Buchanan.
Okay. I have one last question for you. And this is a different kind of question also. Who do you think is the most important employee in the school district?
I don't think that if you're looking at a school or a school system, and I think that when you look at Buchanan Community Schools, you have to look at there's no one person that's the most important person. I think it's a community. I think it takes a community to raise a child and put the best education out there. So if you're asking me that question, I would not be able to say that there's one specific person that's the most important person. When you look at Buchanan Community Schools and what we're doing to raise our kids, help them be successful, whether it's at a 2-year, a 4-year, or a trade school, or just a career, I think that it takes parent support, it takes teacher and staff support, it takes the leadership support, it takes the businesses. I think it takes all of us looking at what our mission and vision is and working together as a collaborative effort. So as the leader, my job is to work with those different areas, try to make sure that we're putting forth the best product out there to help our kids be successful. So that's how I'm going to answer that question.
You answered it very well. So I actually do have one more question for you, and that is simply, in a minute or less, is there anything else you'd like to share about you that the community or staff members might hear?
I have nothing that I can think of specifically, with respect to what the Stafford community doesn't know about me. I've been here 18 years, so I'm pretty much an open book, and I've said that to people. Obviously, there might be people out there that have concerns on some of the way I've interacted with respect to applying different rules and policies and procedures as a leader. But I think that's that role that you handle those situations, that you support our kids to make sure that they succeed. That's what we're here for, is to work together.
Okay. Mark, I've enjoyed this very much. Thank
Thank you.
you. I look forward to hearing your interview tonight. Wish you the best of luck and have a good rest of the afternoon.
All right, thank you. And I'm glad that the community has been involved and helped come up with some of these questions. So thank you.
All
Have a
right.
great
Take
day.
care. Hi, Trisha. How are you this afternoon?
I'm well. How are you, Mark?
I am doing really good. Thank you. Um, it's really nice to have this opportunity to talk with you this afternoon. And this conversation is being streamed to our community and to our staff members and that kind of thing. And with that, we'll just kind of go ahead and get started if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I'm ready.
Okay, so first question is, Trish, what would you like staff and community members and students to know about you as a person? Would ask you, not, I know you can't really divorce, being an educator from being a person and that sort of thing, but on the personal side, relationship side, those sorts of things, what would you like people to know about you?
Oh, okay. So that's a good question. So I'm happy to share just a little bit about myself personal life. I am a mother of four kids. I have a son who's 21, a daughter who is 17. She's entering into her senior year of high school. And I have a set of twins, a boy-girl set, who are they're 13 years old. And wherever I land, my twins will come along with me. I married my high school sweetheart. We've been together for 30 years, married for 22 years. And he is a lieutenant with the state police. He's posted out of Paw Paw. He spent most of his career, though, at the Niles Post. And I guess things that I enjoy, I really enjoy hosting parties here at my home. I enjoy cooking and baking, especially trying new recipes out. Even though it may be a flop or something like that, I just like to try new recipes. I do also enjoy getting on the water with my husband, going fishing, just kind of relaxing on the water a bit. And then anything else, I have most of my kids are athletes, so I do enjoy getting out and playing a little basketball with them, kind of helping them. Even though I'm not a great player, I did play basketball in high school, and I'm older now, so but I do get out and try to shoot around a little bit. So and then also I'm one of seven kids, so I come from a pretty large family, and I enjoy spending time with my siblings as well.
Well, that's great. That's an awful lot of information to share. Thank you for that. I think you answered about six of my questions
Oh, I'm
during
sorry.
no. We'll get some more of that later and
Okay.
that kind of thing. Of course, when you and I first chatted and talked, I learned that you have an affinity for fishing
Hmm.
and cooking fish and that sort of thing. And so that was really interesting for me.
Oh yeah.
So, Trish, how did you get to be the person that you are today? Not necessarily the educator you are today, but how did you get to be the person you are today?
Oh wow, that is a deep question. Um, I I will say my family, my mother, very spiritual person. My grandfather was a minister in Benton Harbor. My mother, of course, and all of that was wrapped in her, and all of her siblings as well. So I grew up in a very spiritual family where we were deep embedded in our faith and having hope for whatever we set our minds out to. My mother was received her GED. She didn't graduate from high school, but what I did see her do was really study hard to work in a lab, a local lab in St. Joe, where they built and created, developed testing kits for animals. So
Mm,
she worked alongside scientists developing these testing kits. And seeing her work hard and study to actually get this position was very inspirational for all of us in the home as we watched her and just knowing and just, getting a GED. She had to work harder to get that. And so she would have been paid some additional dollars. But she was very, very set in her beliefs and her morals, and those she shared them with us. And having a house of seven, she married my dad, who's my stepfather. He's 95. Um, and having them work together, and establishing who we are and how to really build a good work ethic is really what made me who I am today. And one of our big pieces, our church was our central kind of component of our family. So I really enjoyed serving our community, serving our church. And so servitude is part of me. It's all who I am. I love to roll my sleeves up and get in the meat of things and helping others in any way and capacity I can.
Okay, very good. Trisha, I'm going to step away for just a second. I'm going to be right
Okay.
back.
Okay. Okay. No problem.
Okay, I am back with you right now.
Okay.
So we are in an unprecedented time here with COVID. I think we started out, we heard little snippets about this virus in China, and it might have international implications and that kind of thing. But boy, it sure is with gangbusters here, and we have all had different experiences than I think we ever thought we would have in our lifetime. But some people have noted that there are ways that they have benefited from the time the COVID crisis has given them. Are there some ways? Is there a way or two that you have benefited during this whole crisis?
Oh, absolutely. I was just speaking the other day to a group of friends and saying that number one, from my husband and I, my husband's working from home, and we have never spent this much time together. Um, well, pre-marriage, we were always together because you're courting and you want to be together all the time. But once we got our careers and got our family started, we were torn, going every which way. Um, so this has really given us an opportunity to spend more time together than we've ever spent since we've been married. Our kids have seen us every day, pretty much all day, and we've been really accessible to them. And I think for them, that has really benefited them as well. And just getting out and reflecting and enjoying, especially we came up on spring and now summer, enjoying what nature has to offer us as well. Finding outside of the box ways to enjoy family. All of our families now are connecting virtually, and that's something that we really hadn't done before. And then it's a really quick way to get everybody together just on an instant. Someone can just press, the call button, and pretty much everybody's answering, and we're having a quick call. So having accessibility like that to other family members has also been a benefit for our family and for me. And then also just time to sit and read a book without having just pressure on these other things, these outside entities that kind of interrupt your book reading mode. So actually able to go through books throughout this time has really been another benefit, kind of just getting back into the love and enjoyment of reading just because.
So do you read for pleasure?
I do. I do. I enjoy it, especially on the weekends. It kind of gets you away from the reality of the world for a minute. I enjoy going out in the backyard and just sitting and reading. And this time has offered us that. And my husband and I actually read out on front porch as well at night as we're getting older too. We enjoy that. So,
Yeah.
and just get a book and we read. And we've ordered, especially during this time, we've ordered so many books from Amazon this during this pandemic, and we're going through them. So yeah, and I'll tell you, one thing is that as we work long hours, we come home, you have to get dinner done, or if your kids are in sport or some after school program, you're constantly going to support them. So having that time to really enjoy reading has been far spread very thin. So getting realigned to just the enjoyment of reading is something that I've really have been able to do during this pandemic.
So, and I have to ask this follow-up question. What are you reading now for pleasure?
So I don't know if it's a pleasure, but I picked up, my husband had purchased years ago Obama's book, Audacity of Hope.
Mm-hmm.
So right now I'm reading that. I'm almost finished with that. We're also reading some other books together around diversity as well. So right now, but for me, reading the Audacity of Hope is for enjoyment for me. I'm learning a lot through his book. So
Okay, very good, very good. So you've, I thought your answer was really interesting because I kind of heard you say that you've actually had enhanced communication with some of your family members and that sort of thing during COVID, and that's very interesting. What's been your biggest challenge during COVID?
So and keeping my kids engaged has been a really big challenge. I have 3 kids at home, so my 3 youngest ones, they're all at home, and they all have dealt with this very differently. My 13-year-old son, he's good with everything. So no matter what, he's good. He's taking this like a champ. My 13-year-old daughter, who's very social, I've had to find ways to help her connect. So one of the big things we met in the grocery parking lot, one mom and myself, and then I had my 13-year-old daughter, and they were able to talk to each other from the car and actually physically see each other. So finding other creative ways to do that. My 17-year-old daughter, she has really kept herself busy. She's in an internship right now. And then she's also connected throughout with she takes care of the animals at the school that she goes to. So she's found an outlet. And then I attended an open house just kind of this weekend. And one of the families that we connect with a lot, I did share that I'm having hosting withdrawals. So I like to host parties, especially during the summer. So that has been a big challenge for me, not having the big cookouts, not being able to just be out in the yard with our family and our friends. Pretty much that has really been the biggest challenge. Even our 4th of July, our yard is packed all night. And I really wanted to host something. And I had to send out a message to let everybody know, nope, we're practicing social distancing. I know if I even invited 2 people, 20 people would show up. So I wouldn't do that. So that has been one of my biggest withdrawals.
Okay, so in the school world, we're hopeful in or outside the school world too that we're going to get a vaccine here at some point. And let's be real optimistic and say that we get a vaccine by the first of the year, and get everybody immunized, and we're able to resume a much more normal lifestyle, school, in the spring of the year, something like that. What do you think what's the future going to look like for schools after that point? What do you think the biggest challenges are? What the biggest needs going to be for schools at that point? Obviously we've got a lot of kids who are going to need some catching up, and that kind of thing, that aren't connecting because maybe they're not able to. What do you see school like going forward, and challenges and opportunities and all that sort of thing?
Okay. So vaccine comes out at the first of the year. We know parents will have the option of, getting their kids vaccinated or not. Just as we are, moving forward with other vaccines, so have that option to do that. So making sure that we are communicating all options for parents, I think will be a big challenge, and making sure they have an understanding of the impacts of the vaccine and what it can and cannot do. I think that will be a challenge. I think also it'll be a challenge of getting our students reacclimated to the normalcy of what they know at school. Now they've gotten a little bit used to being out of school for a number of months. We're heading into the summer. So now we have to kind of change their mindset. We're back in school 100% of the time. This is how we do school. So kind of reteaching school to our students would be a challenge. And then of course, all of the things, the resources that we'll have to put into kids to decrease the gaps that COVID may have caused. That will be another challenge that our staff will have to address once we become 100% face-to-face. So I would say the communication will be a challenge, getting kids reacclimated, and then also closing those gaps will be challenges that we'll have to face as soon the onset of the vaccine.
Okay. So we're going through my questions here, and you've answered a lot of them already. Describe your level of involvement in the greater community, civic involvement, if you will. And then, what could the people in Buchanan expect in terms of your involvement in the community and civically, that sort of thing?
Okay. So my involvement with the community and what I've experienced, I'm in 100%. I'm very visible in the community, such as wherever I make sure that I am seen, like in grocery stores outside of the school setting. So I'm connecting with families or seeing students on their turf on the way. I open myself up to be invited to um, any type of meeting, community meeting, organizational meeting, or whatever you may have it, so that I am also making those connections from the district to the community. I attend community events when we have them. So hopefully invited to those and kind of can get information off of the website, the community website of when those events happen. I am very, very visible. I attend, of course, the Blossom Time Parade every year. I make myself excited because that's something that I went through as a child, and I've instilled it in my kids, and we just look forward to those Blossom Time Parades and those special events. Any advocacy support that the community is needed, I'm all in. If this is what our goal is, then that is a need. If we're, working on the economy, trying to get more residents into the community, I'm very helpful. I look forward to connecting to our commissioners and the mayor moving forward and trying to have some partnerships. I did visit Buchanan this Friday as well. I just went downtown, walked down there I probably stayed about an hour. Took my twins and we went into a couple of the shops there, went to the Union coffee shop as well, and visited the library, introduced myself. So I want to be a part of the community. I want to make it almost seem like I don't live away. So I'm there from the beginning of the day until the evening hours. And I make myself accessible to any opportunities that I can to support and help build Buchanan.
Very good. Back early on, you talked about playing basketball. You talked about playing basketball now with your kids.
Yes.
Can't jump as high as you used to.
Nope.
So, and you kind of indicated athletics as part of your life. How do you see athletics fitting in to the entire schema of the educational experience? And you can talk about fine arts as well.
Mm-hmm. So all of those extra curricular activities, or even just the fine arts, they help develop the child as a whole. I am a firm supporter in our fine arts program. As a high schooler going through a system of needing additional support through my coaches, my mentors, and also those connections with other athletes who are number one, achieving student academic, the attitude of not giving up, and then the attitude of also defeat. What do I learn from being not winning to make myself better? And that just carries on throughout your entire life skills. And then also being self-motivated and self-driven. All of these intrinsic skill sets are developed and just kind of honed through programs like in the athletic department and also in fine arts. And I think of, I had a sister who went through band in high school. Now, she wasn't that academically sound and she just really didn't care too much, but she knew she was going to be at her band practices. She was not going to miss band or her class at all. She enjoyed that. She enjoyed performing and continues to perform. So I think it is what kids are made of, and I think they, definitely especially if it's within our budgetary options that kids should have exposure to, all of those things that make up the whole child, the child as a whole.
Trisha, are you a passionate educator?
I feel that I am.
How do you
I
show
feel
that? How do you
so.
demonstrate your passion?
So for me, I show it through my energy. I show it through my support. I show it through my I'm not going to give up on you type of attitude. You have to get this. I show it through my extra steps that I take in meeting kids where they are and meeting with parents. I take it through, I show it through my relationships that I have with the overall community, parents, staff. I show it through my actions in service. And all of that kind of builds up and shows my passion for it. And so, and that's how I've been able to operate and really show people that I am an advocate for our students. I'm just an educator who enjoys what she does. Yep.
Very good. Just a couple more questions here. What are 2 or 3 things that during the course of your long and storied educational career really stand out to you?
Two or three things that, could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, what are 2 or 3 things that happened to you or that you were a part of during your long career that really stood out to you as being memorable?
Okay. I would say the first thing is actually landing my first job. And it was actually a substitute position, well, a summer school teacher position in Colbert, and in a sixth grade science class. That was where I made on my own my first connections. I graduated from college, landed the summer school position, don't know how. But and I was young then, but I was able to make some really good connections. And I was just really like, yeah, this is really, I can do this. I can do this for a long time. So from there, I applied to Benton Harbor. So that was my first memorable thing. That after graduating, it was confirmed that this is really what I want to do, by having that first job as a science teacher during the summer program. Another thing that really stands out to me is that when I became a kindergarten teacher, um, at this particular building, I had an administrator who really believed in me. I always thought that, well, I never thought that I would become a leader. Well, this particular administrator allowed me to lead. He pushed me to lead. He saw something in me, so he had me to join and lead several committees. And from there, it just kind of blossomed open like, I can bring a team along. I can be a part of this. I can really inspire others to work really hard so that we can achieve this goal. So that's another big kind of epiphany for me. Yes, Trish, you're really a leader.
Okay,
And so,
those were very good examples.
mhm,
I've got the last question I want
okay.
to ask you is there anything else you would like community members and staff members to know about you briefly? Because you've shared an awful lot. You've been very open here, and I appreciate that. But anything else you
Okay.
want people to know?
You know what? I was asked a question by someone about, why are you leaving? Okay. And or, so here's the thing, and I'll just share this is that I love students. I really do. And I shared with the board the other night my core beliefs. And I stand firm on those core beliefs. And I think when I know when something does not align up to my core beliefs, I had to be true to myself, and I had to make some bold decisions. And I will say that this decision for me to leave was actually happened March 4th for me, where I put in my resignation letter. So I want people to know that I'm a firm believer in what I believe in, and I stand firm in that. And it's all of it does go back and support our students. It supports the goals of Buchanan Community Schools. And as long as we are in tune to our core beliefs, and that's putting the main thing first, and which are our students, then I fully support and I'm digging in to the work ahead.
Trish, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for opening up and getting us to know you a little bit better as a person. I look forward to seeing you tonight, and good luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, welcome back, everybody, and very excited to have our last virtual conversation here with Brian Brown. And I want to remind people tuning in that there are audience feedback forms on the front page of the website. So I encourage people to fill those out after I get a chance to talk to Brian here today. But again, welcome, Brian. Nice to
Thank
see
you.
you.
That's always good.
And I'm going to go ahead and just get started and ask you a few questions here. The first one is, um, obviously you're a professional educator. You've had teaching experience. You were serving as a business manager, interim superintendent, lots of great educational credentials. What would you like the people of Buchanan, the staff, the students, and the community members to know about Brian Brown as a person?
Brian Brown as a person. So I'm a pretty open book. I am what you see, and I enjoy life. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the people that I'm around, and I am pretty optimistic kind of guy. Um, I, People who know me would say that that I am pretty hard worker and will do what needs to be done to get things done. Um, on the downside, people also who know me know that I don't like cheese, so there's always that there's always that drawback, I'm sure. Um, but no, I am a very transparent person. Uh, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the people that I'm around. That's pretty much
Well,
me.
that begs the question, what is there about cheese that you don't like?
Oh, so the cheese is it's just a texture thing, I'm pretty sure. I just can't, the
Okay,
good thing though is like my wife never ever has to worry about me eating the last bit of cheese out of our refrigerator because it's definitely not me for certain.
okay. So, Brian, how did you get to be the person you are today?
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot. So I grew up in Buchanan, as people probably are aware of, and because of that, I had a lot of my roots are in Buchanan. So I've been able to get a lot of values from growing up in the community, as well as the life experiences that I have had. Some of them I had shared in the interview that took place last Monday, but others are just life experiences of the friendships and the values that they bring into relationships that we have. So a lot of it is family. A lot of it is I had an amazing grandma who really took me under her wing and taught me lots of different things and values of what she expected me as I was growing up. Parents, I don't want to disclude parents, of course, because they're incredibly important, of course. But even in the community that I was around, the neighborhood that I was in, the camaraderie, the everything that we did together, the experiences, the memories, all that stuff played a major role in who I am today, along with obviously going through college, living life and getting experiences and such like that. Meeting an incredible woman who is now my wife, and I hope she's watching so that way I can
Yeah,
get
get some
bonus points
points
for that.
there.
Yeah, trying. Yeah.
Um, and professionally, who are some of your influencers? Who who left the mark on you?
So okay, first off, I'm gonna go back a little ways because it started when I was in school. I mean, everybody has their favorite teachers that they had, and I also had lots of teachers that left good marks on me in terms of uh, how I should be, what person should I be, teacher wise. But I'm gonna leap into when I started teaching. And when I got into teaching, it was my very first year. I was just hired, and I'm going to go with. So Karen Falkenstein is one of the principals, was one of the principals that hired me. She actually happened to be my fifth grade principal when I was in fifth grade, and then she gave me the opportunity to grow as a leader and let me make mistakes. And because the mistakes, and just coached and guided me through my mistakes. And so from that, it's it's brought forth that, hey, you know what, it's okay to make mistakes. It's just whether or not you learn from those mistakes or not that you end up getting better. So Karen was very good at guiding me through the first few years of teaching, and everybody that is in teaching knows that those are the toughest years to get through for certain.
Okay, very good. So we've been in an unprecedented time over the last few months with COVID, and our lives have been totally disrupted. Schools have been totally disrupted. But my wife shared with me an interesting perspective, an article that she read where people were talking about the positive impact of COVID in their lives, that there's been some positives. Have you experienced a positive or two during the COVID crisis?
Yes, I have, as a matter of fact. So I tend to stay pretty busy throughout any given week and weekend, of course. And with COVID, I mean, a lot of that came to a screeching halt, as everybody is aware of. The good things out of all of that is my yard has probably never looked any better than it has right now, because I've actually been able to spend time on it. The weeding, although lately has not been going as well as I like, I mean, it just looks a lot better. And quite honestly, that's pretty therapeutic to get out there and to do yard work and such like that. And then I've had more time to just like read. And for me, that's a good escape, because that's how I just get away from everything, sit down and open up a book and read. So the positive for me during that time frame has been I've had more time to work on stuff that I would like to work on as an individual.
Okay, very good. Um, so on the same note, on the COVID theme again,
Mhm.
what's been your biggest challenge?
Oh, so I'm a people person. So COVID does not allow for being a people person. So it makes it difficult. So uh, meetings. So Zoom meetings are great to be able to get together. Google Meet meetings are great to get together and such. But it's the face-to-face meetings that have been. That's where it's easier for me, because body language and all that other what you look for when you're in a face-to-face meeting. Uh, through some of the hardest part through all this, especially when it comes to the job that I was doing, was we were doing Zoom meetings all the time and not face to face.
Schools moving forward,
Mhm.
um, let's assume that in January we get a vaccine and we get people inoculated and things are able to come back to normal, a couple months after that. What are schools going to look like moving forward? What are some of the challenges? For instance, yeah, I know there's going to be a lot of kids that are behind, where they should be academically and that kind of thing. But what are some of the challenges, maybe, and even opportunities that you see we move forward at that point?
So I look at it as, and first I am hopeful that you are right about that, because that would be great. But from a school standpoint, I think schools are going to be looking at what e-learning is like, or should be like, or should not be like. And this might be something that actually up, might be up their alley, down their lane, so that way we might have an e-learning situation classroom versus just an absolute just everybody coming to school type thing. So we're going to be evolving. We evolve every year, every decade, and education is no different. And it will be meeting the needs of what the parents need, is what we can provide to the parents. And it all depends on where we are at that time frame, because I'm not sure with what's going to end up happening with regards to stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, and the plans that we're all trying to come up with to make it as seamless as possible. Education will be a lot more flexible. And that's probably the word that I want to say is, in the future, we are definitely going to be a lot more flexible.
You mentioned that COVID's given you an opportunity to read.
Mm-hmm.
So do you read for pleasure?
I do read for pleasure.
So what are you reading right now?
Right now, I just finished the book 1776. So I like the Revolutionary War type books. I also like sci-fi books as well, because that's a nice getaway, really far getaway. So like the Shannara series and stuff like that. So it's good sit down, and I'm in my own little world for a little while.
You also shared me when we met the other night that you're a beach volleyball player.
I do like to head up to the beach and play some volleyball quite a bit. So several of us get together as much as possible, and then we just play 2-on-2 at Silver Beach typically, and get a few hours of volleyball in. I'm telling you though, the older that I get, the less height I get when I jump. My jump is not much any longer, but it's a great workout. It's great people that I'm around, and I feel good about it. So it's good to get out there and move.
Very good. Let's talk a little bit about civic involvement, what that means to you,
Mhm.
and ways you could share that maybe you've been involved in the greater community and that sort of thing.
Sure. So basically, to give back to the community. Um, so I'm going to go back just a little ways to junior achievement. And I had brought this up back in my first interview. Junior achievement was what I was doing that got me interested into education and teaching and all that. So that was one of the items that I did. And civic involvement is obviously pretty important because that actually changed my life because it took me down a whole new career path. But that could be followed up with other items. So we have Feed the Children was one of the organizations that we had locally that we just basically did fundraisers to be another food bank, so to speak, for struggling families to help them out. Other items that I still do is prior to all the COVID stuff that was going on, I would go to the soup kitchen whenever I could. So usually it was with a group, and it was every 2 months, once every 2 months, that we would go to the soup kitchen and help out there. And then throw on, I sit on the board for Honor Credit Union, which is one of its important missions is to make sure that it gives back to all of the communities that it's in, which Buchanan is one of the communities that it is in. So I sit on the board and vice chair for Honor Credit Union. So I hopefully help out that way as well.
Okay, very good. So you've probably heard the term so-and-so was a really passionate educator.
Mhm.
How does Brian Brown show his passion in the educational area?
Oh, Brian Brown shows his passion by action. So I am. So I throw myself into the job. It's for the kids. When I was teaching, I was always animated. I was always engaging. I was always trying to do whatever was best for kids. From a business official standpoint, it is what can I do to help the teachers? What can I do to help the principals? What can I do to help any of my supervisors to make sure that ultimately what we are doing is for the kids. I am passionate about our kids getting what they need in order to be successful in life.
Okay, very good. So you like to play beach volleyball. What importance do you think athletics, and let's also say fine arts, has in the whole scheme of education for kids?
So it's important to realize that this is outside of the core curriculum type stuff that everybody has to know, but it's so important because it brings in a whole activity has been proven to show very, very helpful to engage the brain in all different studies. So fine arts is very important because it engages a different side of the brain that, let's say, going to my math class engages, but yet they are still comparable because you are still doing math in like band or something like that. Athletics is very important because if you are you're going to show school pride in what you're doing. Number one. B, it is also known that if you are active, that means that you are probably going to do better in terms of schoolwork and life responsibilities and such like that. It's important.
Okay, very good. Do you think there's going to be sports in schools in Michigan's fall?
The MHSAA said there will be in the fall. I'm not overly optimistic that it will end up going that route. I'm incredibly hopeful that we will, though, for certain.
Okay, very good. So throughout your long educational career, what are 2 or 3 things that really stand out for you that you were a part of that were just, really cool, really neat things that happened that are memorable to you? Not necessarily ones that you pulled off, but maybe you were a part of, or you saw happen, you got to witness something like that.
Sure. So there was, and then I'm going to go back quite a ways. There was a tsunami that took place, and there was a fundraising that we did as a school, and we literally had volleyball matches where the elementary schools went and played each other and had all the kids come together, and they paid like a quarter to come in, and then we took all of that money and sent it to the Red Cross for the tsunami relief. And it was such an engaging environment because you have all of these different schools that are getting together, and all of the students coming from those schools that they're obviously cheering on their own teachers and their own staff. So that ended up becoming, it was awesome to be a part of, because we had our own kids that were cheering us on, but they were also trying to be louder and better fans, so to speak, than the other schools. So that was an incredible experience, and it was all for a good cause. And then we were trying to do something good. On a more personal note, I will say that every year that I taught, the hardest part of the year was the last day of school. And it's just because you form so many strong bonds with all of the students, all of the families, that it's really hard to let them move on. And it's an emotional day, number one. Number two, you just can smile because you can see how much the kids have grown through the year, and you know that they're going to do incredible things as we go forward, as they go forward in life, for sure.
Who is the most important employee in the school district?
It's really hard. I mean, you can't really just say one, because everybody has a huge role in everything that they do. So it doesn't matter if you're the superintendent, or if you're a food service worker, if you're a custodian. We all have a job to help our kids. So I don't want to necessarily say that there's a particular employee that is the most important, because I think as a team, I think the team is the most important, and not an individual within that team.
Okay. So we're really at the end of my questions that I have here. I do want to give you a chance to tell the community, tell the staff or the students, if they're listening, anything else about yourself that you think is important for people to know.
Sure. So, let me first start off by saying I am incredibly honored to be part of this process, because there's nothing like having a dream job put in front of you and being moved on into the second round for that dream job. So I'm incredibly thankful for the opportunities that have been put forth to me. I have had great people that have been around me to guide me, to put me in a position that I feel like I can be the best leader for Buchanan. I had a great superintendent mentor at my school district that I'm in right now, and he just retired. And I just feel like I'm ready to put my best foot forward and help the district the best way that I possibly can.
Well, Brian, thank you very much. I've completely enjoyed this interview and this time to get to know you a little bit better as a person. And I wish you the best of luck tonight. And I know I'll be seeing you, another 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.